Our next agent of innovation is currently leading the charge for brands with purpose, styling with purpose, and sustainable value chain for Unilever Philippines, collaborating with different stakeholders to drive successful sustainability initiatives at scale. Let us all welcome Unilever Philippines Senior Manager for Sustainable Business, Mr. Rondell Torres.
Thank you, thank you. Hi. Woohoo. Hang on, let me just slip that in. All right, wow. First time to be on this large of a stage. Hello. Thanks to Dan for the energizing break earlier, but I wanted to try something as well. So if you can indulge me, can you close your eyes? Not very, not a lot of activity here. And if you can, without looking at anybody else, point to your north. Very shy ones I see, nakaganon, nakaganon. Where is your north? No checking. Where is your north? Who's bolder? Where is your north? Okay, open your eyes. Anybody in the same direction? Actually, I checked. North is that way. But actually, this is more than the actual direction because this is about purpose. And, in Unilever, we're very happy to be invited here because we like talking about what makes us tick. And really, it's about the mission to make sustainable living accessible and commonplace. So, allow me to share that story with you. Because we started out in the 1800s, back in the United Kingdom. And one of our founders is a gentleman named William Lever. And he didn't just want to start a business, he wanted to start a movement. So he started the first company to sell packaged soaps. Not because he wanted to make a buck, but he actually wanted to make cleanliness commonplace. Back in the day, hygiene, personal care wasn't that common. It wasn't standard practice. But because of access and because of entrepreneurs like Lord Lever back in the day, it gave rise to a lot of what we see now. And what we see now is huge because we're talking to you. We're talking to people like you, consumers, and the appetite for what we now consider as sustainable is increasing. You'll see there that 33% globally are already buying sustainable products. And whatever they understand by sustainable, they're doing it. And now there's also a further 21% of people who are open to buying more sustainable products. Now I'll go into the detail of what that all means, but essentially some interests also are captured on how well society is answering the questions and issues on hygiene, health, and nutrition, and so on. There's a whole list there: climate change, packaging waste. So today's consumer is very aware, woke, very vocal, and also very connected, as we all saw from our previous speaker. So where does that lead us? Because essentially, we had to evolve faster than how we've evolved over the last 50 years. And that's been through really a clear articulation of our purpose. So the purpose of Unilever, and it has been the purpose of Unilever since for many years, starting in 2010, is that to make sustainable living commonplace. Because the beliefs are there to line it up. Because brands with purpose grow, companies with purpose last, and people, there's a huge premium on people. We thrive with purpose. And this isn't supposed to be very surprising. But what's surprising is that the company is actually betting big on purpose. And here's how. So back in 2010, we launched something we call the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. And it's a plan anchored on 3 ambitions. It's about improving health and well-being for 1 billion people globally. And that's important to us because our brands operate in health and wellness and health and well-being. Now, we are manufacturers, So we understand that footprint in the environment is something that we have to be very careful about. And we've pledged to reduce our impact by half. And lastly, we want to enhance livelihoods for millions because we don't just make and market products, we have to sell them. And how we sell them varies from country to country. So we are present in over 190 countries, and each country has its own story. And that's not any different from the Philippines. And that's where we play. Now, these goals aren't just pretty words, they're just not nice little boxes for us to report during talks like this. In fact, we are accountable for the results. These are all time-bound. So by 2020, we are supposed to have delivered on all of these commitments. And we're on track. So, what does that mean for the Philippines? So we have a couple of, in fact, although we're a global company, we're very locally rooted. And there is a sense of autonomy that we have. We can localize our programs. And for health and well-being and for our brands, we have to make sure that they're grounded on purpose. And for environment, how do we take care of our footprint? We have to make sure that the value chain of how we create our stuff is sustainable. Lastly, we have to also sell with purpose. It's not enough that we thrive, it's also supposed to make our communities thrive. So a tidbit is, we're very happy because in 2015, what was then called the Millennium Development Goals was transitioned towards the Sustainable Development Goals. So our then chairman, Mr. Paul Paulman, was the private sector co-chair for the group that developed the SDGs as they are known right now. So sustainability, in fact, is deeply embedded in the company, even back in the 1800s. But now we've applied what we know about it strategically in this current decade. So, nice words, right? But how does it come to life? It comes to life through our programs. So I don't know if, who here is a Dove girl? What about a Dove guy? Ayan, I see raised hands, thank you. So since 2012, Dove has been on a journey to empower women and men towards a better understanding of their self-esteem. But more concretely, we have a program globally and even locally that is called the Dove Self-Esteem Project. Because, growing up, who talks about body confidence? I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Nobody talked about how confident you are and how you look back in the day. What people talked about was how good you looked. But if you didn't look a certain way, then you're kind of disqualified from getting the attention that you think is deserved. But what we're trying to inculcate right now and embed through partnerships with the Department of Education and the Girl Scouts of the Philippines is that young women and young men should be able to have their own understanding of what they should be proud of by themselves. So if you know the campaign for Real Beauty, it's all rooted in the brand purpose of making self-esteem and making beauty a source of confidence and not shame. And the Dove Self-Esteem Project is actually a robust program that is comprised of a number of modules that tackle issues on body confidence and also on how to deal with images from media, which includes traditional media, social media, and the like. So to date, we have reached over 2 million lives here in the Philippines. So we're very happy with that, but given the population of how much we can reach, we're not yet done. We're just tip of the iceberg there. But this is something that actually we've tested out and we've bet our lives on in terms of the life of one of our mega brands. And it's paying its own results and dividends. Moving on. 2, how we now try to upskill the way we partner up with sarisari stores. So this isn't a very sarisari store community, I think, here in Resorts World Manila. But actually, I think majority of traditional or distributive trade is still being transacted at the sari-sari store level. And what they encounter usually is that they close after, 6 months, a year, because they're not really properly trained. There's not enough knowledge on inventory management and also how to manage their finances. So how we partner up with our sari-sari stores is by creating a program called the Kabisig Summit, so that our kabisigs, Tagalog for kasama, parang it's another word for kasama, pero something more strong. Because we understand that if they succeed in their communities, we also succeed. And we upskill them with training modules. And you'll see here that we've also created a digital journey for them, because they're part of the demographic that has shifted towards digital. So the Tindahan Club is something, it's like the next gen of how we engage and how we sell to our sari-sari store partners. And you'll see there are some really good results. Again, work in progress because the world is large, the Philippines needs a lot of help still. And programs like this is meant to spur new programs and collaborations as well. Last but not the least is our focus on sustainable value chain. So I'll zoom in on a very topical, a very important topic right now, plastic waste. So who here can safely say that they're living a zero waste life? Who are trying? What about people who are trying to minimize their waste? Great, fantastic. I love asking because, ask people 10 years ago, 20 years ago about how for example, how much plastic they use in their daily lives. People will just shrug and say, why are you asking? That's not even a question worth answering, but it is, in fact. So, in 2017, the company launched a bold commitment to make ourselves 100% recyclable, compostable, and reusable in our packaging by 2025. So if you have a knowledge of that time, a lot of our private sector co-collaborators, friends in the industry followed suit with their own commitments. And that's great because we're building a movement. But in just this year, in October, we wanted to hyper-accelerate our commitments as well. So last October 8th, we also launched 2 new commitments to reduce our use of virgin plastic by 50%, also by 2025. And also last is to help collect and process more plastic and more packaging than we currently sell. And why do we do that? It's because of something that Dan mentioned earlier. It's about finding our way towards building a circular economy. And here's a quick video to kindly explain that.
There's a lot of plastic pollution in the environment. And the uncomfortable truth is that some of it has got our name on it. And that is not okay with us. In fact, it hasn't just made us think, it's made us rethink. So now more than ever at Unilever, we're rethinking the way that we use plastic packaging in our products. You could say we're getting drastic with plastic.
We don't want to get rid of plastic entirely.
For the safe, efficient,
and economic distribution of our products.
Plastic still has its place.
But that place isn't our environment.
Not in our streets, not in our rivers, and not in our oceans.
No, where plastic belongs
is inside something called the circular economy.
This is where plastic is either
reused,
recycled,
or made compostable.
It's kept in a loop
to stop it from ever finding its way
into the environment.
And this way of thinking is already changing the way we are acting.
In the next 5 years,
we'll halve the amount of virgin, unrecycled plastic that we use.
And as part of that, we will get rid of more than 100,000 tons of plastic packaging.
Completely.
In the next 5 years, working with our partners,
we'll help collect and process
more plastic packaging than we sell.
Yes,
more than we sell.
And in the next 5 years,
100% of the plastic we do use,
will be reusable,
Recyclable.
Or compostable.
every last bit of it.
We also need you, our consumers, our suppliers, our retailers, our employees, and many others to join us on this journey. Because there are things that you can do that will make a real difference. So please help us to close the loop on plastic, and let's make our blue planet blue again.
So thank you. So in fact, before I came here, I came from another conference. It's called the Pilipinas Conference. And we had there our partners in government, partners in civil society, and also media. And the question of the day was, what are you going to do with your packaging footprint, your plastic? And you know, the challenge here is understanding the science behind packaging and making sure that consumers still get the best product packaged at the best way, but now sustainably produced and also sustainably disposed. So how does that come to life in the various programs that we actually engage in? So first is, our response in the Philippines is not just about trolling out the commitment video, but it's about actually something we call zero waste to nature. This was launched in the Philippines, I think in 2016, because we wanted to focus on 6 key areas, the 6 C's as we call it. So first we have to understand what are the consumers thinking about sustainable packaging. What do they feel about plastic? What are they ready to do? And you'll see an example in a bit of what you guys are ready to do. Now, composition is guided by our framework on better, less, and no plastics. All of our brands are mandated to go through this journey because there's no hiding the fact that we have to change. And this is part of the transformation. Third is collection. Part of the commitment in 2019 was to collect. But we were starting our collection programs as early as 2012 because we know the informal sector collects it. And it can become chairs, other plastic items, but it also can become textiles for brands like H&M, and also it can become packaging again. So, you know, there's a whole complicated cycle in the waste sector that we're trying to be part of and trying to spur it towards a circular approach. Now, conversion is, okay, you collect, then what do? It's about recycling it, it's about converting it into something useful. Now, collaboration and communication is how we spur action as well. So we're partnered up with the Department of Education, the Department of Social Welfare and Development, and also quite recently a city that we all know and love. So I'll show that in a bit as well. And we also are very open to a two-way dialogue for questions on what we're doing. Right, so going on to the first, what do we mean by better, less, and no plastic? So less plastic means basically that we reduce the content of plastic so that there's less of it in the first place by lightweighting, by making sure that there's no unnecessary underfilling. Better plastic, is there a better plastic, you might ask? Relative to the industry, there is. It's called post-consumer recyclate. So PCR is something that the industry is now closely looking at because post-consumer, meaning these were the things that people discarded and were properly cycled back into production. And this is what we mean, and this is what our global chair means by it has to stay in the economy and not in the environment. Now, we have a few no plastic options as well. Very happy to share about what we did recently this year through the All Things Hair Refillery in the Philippines. So, basically, the question was, will people change enough so that they can go to, instead of their usual sources of shampoo, they just go to the refilleries that we've done with the Ayala malls. And the happy results of this initiative was actually quite positive. We delivered 10 times on the business case that we initially proposed. And compared to the sales in a supermarket, what we produced out of 3 weeks as a pilot was triple what we expected in supermarkets. And these refilling stations were also collection points. So you saw there 1,600 bottles collected. Because if you wanted to refill something and you brought the wrong bottle, we could take it and then we'll bring it to our recycling partner, and then you get the correct bottle that you can use indefinitely. Right. So that's the All Things Hair Refillery. And, happy to say, though, that we got 98% positive feedback out of the 100. And the 2% was very useful for us as well because it identified gaps in the early mechanics and early understanding of what we were trying to achieve. And this has also helpfully opened the door to actually talk to our regulators to open up refilling as a option for product and brand distribution in the coming years. All right. Okay, one more. So collection. So who here knows the difference between the beverage bottle that you can buy and also a flexible plastic bag? So essentially the difference is we call bottles rigid plastics. Flexible plastics are anything you can fold. So who here thinks that flexible plastics are more expensive to trade in junk shops? Raise your hands. Take a guess. What's more expensive at the junk shops? Rigids or flexibles? I hear flexibles. So actually, working with junk shops as well, ang kalakal nila ay ang bote. Bote ang mga rigids nila, and these are all usually PET material or HDPE. And, it retails for around 10 to 15 pesos a kilo, roughly. Especially if it's clear and not colored. So the price of 1 kilo of flexible plastics is a resounding zero. Nobody trades in it, nobody buys it. That's why it ends up in landfill or gets littered in waterways. So what we're trying to do here is to change attitudes towards flexibles. And this is where our Surf Mrs. Walastik and Collect Kilo Kita program comes in. Because we had to assign a value for the flexible plastics that we are trying to collect. And the value is 10 pesos worth of Unilever products for every kilo of clean and dry flexibles. And these are present in the city of Manila with Yorme and also our other community partners plus school partners as well. So what does this mean? We're never going to become a waste management company. Unilever will never become a waste management company. But why are we collecting waste? And not just our own waste. This is for all brands. If you go to any of our collection points and bring us brand A, brand B, brand C that don't belong to us, we still accept it as long as it's clean and dry. We collect it because we're trying to pump prime the circular economy because there has to be feedstock for these post-consumer plastic that we can then bring to recyclers. So movement in R&D, technology is all there. It's just now also about understanding what makes consumers believe in programs like this and make them act on them and engage. Right. So it occurred to me that I can't just give company examples on and on. So I think, some 3 lessons that I think we can mull over because there's no one-size-fits-all approach really. But the mission to make sustainable living commonplace is really about understanding what your purpose is and also going big. So, it takes a while. It takes a minute. It takes a while because you have to understand what the company purpose is and be very clear. even if you're a for-profit or a non-profit. And this also applies to us as people. All of us in the Unilever have to undergo a thing called the purpose workshop, because that actually identifies your purpose in the company and in life. So, there are also cases that that happen na a person's purpose becomes something outside the organization. Gusto niya palang mag-NGO or gusto niya mag-government service, and we support that kind of transition as long as it's completely authentic and real. And once you know your purpose and it's big enough, especially if you're working in a company, you have to make sure that you engage and partner. Our experience, we don't, we have to partner with junk shops, with local governments, with barangays, communities, mayors, vice mayors, your senros, menros, because that's not our core job. But what we can provide are content and also incentives and also a process by which to spur this kind of thinking and approach in industry. Now, last is testing and learning. We didn't get it right the first time. If you saw the previous example. Back in 2012, we only collected 1,000 metric tons in that full year. Actually, as of yesterday, we collected 1,000 metric tons of flexibles. So one flexible, kunyari a sachet or a bag, actually weighs less than a gram. So can you imagine 1,000 of those less than a gram things already sizing up? But we're not stopping there because we want to collect and process more than what we sell. But this is a product actually of testing and learning, because we had to understand what would incentivize people to join our project. So testing and learning is quite important. And in your own sustainability journey, it's something that you should also be very ready about. Like, you will fail. And hopefully that's okay. You fail at the small things so that you can succeed at the bigger things. And as a company, Unilever has been testing and learning for a while now. Because in the Philippines, we've been here for around 92 years. And so that's already a senior citizen. So that's already 3 generations of Unilever associates and employees. And even Von apparently was a former Unilever associate. So it's been a family of people who wanted to do things better and who were very honest about not knowing the things that they should and also wanting to do better. So that could form part of the seeds of your own sustainability journey, even as people. If you want to choose products that are sustainably made, go for it. If you want to join Facebook groups or Instagram groups on zero waste, go for it. If you want to try plant-based diets, and I've tried that recently, it's actually quite delicious, and I don't feel that I'm missing out, go for it. And it's about also being honest about what you are excited about and passionate about, tying into your purpose again. So with that, let me just give a quick rundown of our wins for the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. And hopefully, this is something that you can also take home with you. Thanks, guys. Go big with purpose. Thank you.